Welcome to another episode of Her Playbook, brought to you by Kendra Scott. Her Playbook, a podcast highlighting inspiring stories of women in sports and business. My name is Madelyn Burke, and I'm thrilled to be joined by the Chief of Staff of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, hosted at MetLife Stadium, Carly Gruenberg. Carly, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm super pumped to be here.
I am super pumped to have you, especially with, the World Cup coming in just over a year. Really.
Yep.
That's a huge thing for MetLife Stadium, for the New York, New Jersey area, and for you being a chief of staff of the event, one that's hosted in the town, essentially where you grew up. How big is this moment?
This is massive, kind of beyond my own comprehension, I feel like, half the time. But just for a little context, for those who don't know, the 2026 World Cup is and will be the biggest event that we have ever seen in this region, in North America as well. It is hosted by 16 cities across North America, 11 in the US, 2 in Canada, and 3 in Mexico. So us as at MetLife and the New York, New Jersey region is one of these 16 host cities. It's also an expanded format for the World Cup this year, or for next year. So it's actually now it's a format of 48 teams and 104 matches, which is increased from previous World Cups of 32 teams and 64 matches. So it's bigger in every sense of the word. And also just another tidbit, I think, as we're here talking about American football, the viewership for the last World Cup in Qatar was 1.5 billion for that final match. Which outdraws viewership from the last 10 plus Super Bowls combined.
Wow.
So it's just absolutely massive, and it is on a global scale that I think we're not used to seeing here, but it's so excited, and we're ready to welcome the world and make this the best and most unforgettable World Cup.
Yeah.
In history.
And I mean, such a global game, of course, soccer is, and as reflected in the viewership and in the numbers, but also the passion behind the sport. As a chief of staff for the World Cup here in New York, New Jersey area, what does your job entail? What's the process been like building up to the main event? I'm sure there's a lot of things that people might expect and some that people might not understand about what goes into putting this together.
Yeah, so the short answer is no, obviously, no 2 days are the same. It is craziness. But I think just a little background on my role and us as the New York, New Jersey host committee. Back to what I was talking about, how there's 16 other host cities. Each city has their own local organizing body called the host committee. And so for us, we are basically that on the ground body that liaises with FIFA, which is the international body that governs football around the world, and they put on the actual tournament itself here. So with FIFA, all of our governmental partners across New Jersey and New York City, as well as, of course, the stadium and MetLife. So we are that liaison between all these different entities, and we are basically in charge of everything almost outside of the stadium. So FIFA comes in and they put on the matches. We in this region are hosting 8 matches, including the final, which is huge. I should have mentioned that up front. But FIFA will come in and they really control and put on the actual programming around the matches. Us as the host committee are involved in basically everything outside in terms of the fan engagement, the marketing, the making sure transportation, security goes as well as possible. Liaising with our tourism, our business communities, chambers of commerces, different communities to make sure our whole region, the state of New Jersey and the 5 boroughs of New York all feel like they're a part of this experience. Mm-hmm. So it is a very, very tall order. And me as chief of staff, I'm basically that right hand to our principals of the organization, project managing, making sure everything is in line, working across the organization, which is right now we are small. This is a surprise, is we are not a big organization. We're about 12 people full time right now. So we we're growing and it's going to be great. But I think people aren't realizing that we're not this giant entity coming in from FIFA. We are a small, almost startup.
Yeah.
Responsible for just a massive project. It's exciting, and it's exciting to to be a part of everything. It's also admittedly super overwhelming, but in the best way possible. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like too, there's so many similarities. I look at your trajectory in your career, and you started in politics, working with Governor Phil Murphy. And I feel like it's the way you describe this role leading into the World Cup is similar to leading into an election or kind of building towards that crescendo moment of something. Did that time in politics kind of help you with this role you've currently got?
Totally. I think in multiple ways. One, it connected me to the person who ultimately helped me get this job.
Right.
So what a little unknown fact about the process for bidding for World Cup matches is it is a insanely lengthy process. This was coming out of New York City Hall and the state of New Jersey, the governor's office. This has been a process since about 2017, just to actually put the documents together and get that process to even bid to bring matches at all to a region. Mm-hmm. And then there's almost another bidding process to determine how many matches each host city is getting, including the final, obviously, which is landing here. So there's so much of these like different campaign moments as part of this. And I think secondly, it's also a big part of campaigns and mega events in general is there is an end date, right? It's what you said, this big crescendo moment. And being able to be really nimble and adapt to so many curveballs and hurdles that kind of get thrown your way just to put on these massive, whether it's winning an election or hosting or succeeding in a massive event. It's just being able to be in that fast-paced environment with, it's not so much structure.
Right.
That I think has prepared me well for this type of role, this environment. And yeah, of course, I would not have been here without previously working in government and politics because it really spins out of that lane too.
Yeah. And it is so interesting. I think when we look in hindsight at our career paths or our life paths, it all kind of makes sense. But in the moment, it feels like, what is happening here and where am I going and how do I find this direction? When you made the decision to kind of pivot your career in a new direction, how did you do that? How did that come to you? And how did you say, okay, you know what? I want to take my talent a different way.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I've always been a lifelong sports fan, athlete. Mm-hmm. I played basketball in college. It's always been super important to me, that aspect. In undergrad and college, I graduated and majored in art history and international politics, which is just like a classic liberal arts major. So, after, as Madelyn just said, I worked in politics and government right after college for a little while. And I had a moment where, I'm not sure this is exactly what I want to do. And I want to pivot. I want to learn some more hard skills that I didn't get with the majors I chose in undergrad. And I decided I wanted to go back to school and went to business school. I got my MBA at NYU, which really helped me kind of gather some of those hard skills. I will say it was ultimately COVID, so that's another story in itself.
Right.
But
COVID, I think for a lot of us had us saying, all right, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I was in business school during COVID and was applying to a bunch of things in sports and media and tech, trying to transition into the private sector because I knew that was my goal. So got an MBA, which was awesome. Went and worked at a startup in the micromobility e-scooter space, which was a great job right after school. But ultimately, tech layoffs, COVID, et cetera, the company laid off like 25% of their workforce. I was one of them. But it also gave me this moment where I was able, like you said, to reassess, like, okay, what do I really want to be doing? Mm-hmm. At the same time, I was living in New York and getting very involved in some women's pickup basketball leagues in the city and some other types of, grassroots leagues like that. Hanging out with people that were in soccer. I had some closest friends who have they have a league also in Brooklyn. So getting to meet people in this space, and so many of them had these awesome jobs in media, in sports. And I was like, you know what? I really want to do that. So ultimately, it was just like by the people I was surrounded with, I was able to decide this is what I want, was able to just really network with my personal friendships and then my friend groups, was able to reach back out, see what people are up to, and through that landed another role in breaking into sports more formally in the women's basketball space. So I worked at a startup that was making women's basketball sneakers, and really, really successful. They have a big partnership with Dick's stores. Again, it was a small startup, but learned a lot. Clearly, startups and campaigns are the theme of my life, which has been interesting. But
it's such a different path too, because I think a lot of people will go and look for the job that they find on the job board that you clock in at this hour and clock out at that hour, which is a fully respectable path as well. But the startup path is a kind of a little bit more volatility.
Yes.
It's like a high risk, high reward path. Is that something in you that's kind of always been, something that motivates you in a way?
I think that's an interesting question, because I keep falling back into it.
Right.
Even each time I'm like, okay, no more.
Yeah.
But I keep falling back into it. And I think because, like you said, it is this non-traditional path a bit. And I think that's what kind of draws me in.
Yeah.
Not this super structured corporate 9-to-5 experience, which candidly are also a bit harder to break into. A lot of these startups, these types of environments are a lot through your connections, making really, establishing those connections early on in your career, reaching out to current friends, acquaintances, people from school, et cetera, and tapping into those networks. And I feel like that's how I was able to break into these types of more non-traditional roles and startup roles. It's just a little less rigid, and there's a little less structure around the recruitment process and all of that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's how it's happened, more or less. I'm not sure. Again, this is like each time I go through a startup or campaign or something, I'm like, that is it. I want a stable 9-to-5 job. And I'm still saying that now. I'm like, after World Cup, just go,
It'll be fine.
Fine. Yeah. But I keep getting drawn to it, and I don't know why. So that's a great question.
Like a moth to the flame.
I am
Carly's just like, this is my type of role.
Exactly. They keep finding me somehow.
It's not your fault. I can't blame you for it.
Yeah.
It is kind of fascinating, too, though, when you look at the way, like you talk about building towards this World Cup, it feels like, for a sports fan who might be excited to watch it, okay, that's so far out. That's 2026. That's, we got so many things that are going to happen between now and then. But for you who's in the mix, in the weeds, and building towards this is kind of really coming down to it, and the details are getting put into place. What are some of the biggest challenges in your role and in this job and in this kind of path building towards a huge event like this that's not only big for a local region, but also on a global scale? All eyes are going to be on this.
Yeah, that is the question we ask ourselves every day. Mm-hmm. But we can officially say now it's next year, which is crazy, because I've been working on this for 2 years now, since the host committee formally formed as a separate organization outside of government. And a lot of it was we were in this planning mode, working through across all verticals: marketing, transportation, security, events, fan engagement. We were in this planning mode, and now this switch has to happen where, okay, now we need to deliver.
Yeah.
So we're in this next phase, or beginning to be in this next phase, which is really interesting and also challenging because we are a small team, limited resources, which we're working through. But for us, it's exciting because we have some cool milestones coming up. I think for us, we're really targeting that 1 year out mark, which is June 11th, which is the 1 year out till the first match is played in the World Cup. And that's kind of where we want to be out in our communities, letting people know, hey, this is coming in a year. This is a huge deal. We want everyone to feel involved, which is an exciting opportunity and also has its challenges because everyone does want to be involved in a part of it.
Yeah.
And as much as, we want to be everything to everyone, it's really challenging. And that's probably one of the bigger challenges. We want to make sure we are pulling off that mission of igniting the entire region.
How does a host committee get formed? I mean, I think, oftentimes when we hear these big events, whether it's an Olympics, a World Cup, or what have you, we hear about the host committee and their role in putting it on. But how does that come together, and then how does that dissolve as the event? Is it similar to a political campaign, or how would you describe to people who are unfamiliar with that?
A little bit similar to a political campaign in terms of headquarters are set up and they're taken down after the campaign. But it's a bit different in terms of the host committee is really formed out of a contractual agreement between, in this case, it was the state of New Jersey and New York City Hall as a joint agreement with FIFA and MetLife Stadium to host matches in our region.
Yeah.
So contractually obligated to fulfill a lot of different requests and items from these bodies. So that is our goal. And so that's how we were formed. It was originally formed. We had two representatives one from the state of New Jersey, one from New York City tourism. So from the tourism arm, they were basically working on this as part of they're in their side jobs in their respective offices, working through this more legal process. In 2023, we were announced as a host city officially in 2022. In 2023, it was when the host committee formed as a separate organization. It was incorporated we are an independent nonprofit organization, a 501c6. And we were stood up in 23 when my two bosses left their roles.
Yeah.
And I was the third hire. So it was really building something completely from scratch. Luckily, we have awesome partners in FIFA, in our governmental agencies, in our tourism agencies, at the stadium, at our professional teams and clubs like this. That's made it, we're not alone in this process.
Right.
But that's more or less how it's set up from that more governmental legal side.
So it's more like for people out there who are going to watch or listen to this who think, wow, that's a cool job. That's something I would want to do at some point. A lot of it is, the connections that you've built through life and through your past vocations. But also it feels like it's like the people that and the connections that you've made have said, hey, do you want to come be a part of this? Let's pull this off. Let's pull this together.
I will also add a part of it is being persistent.
Absolutely.
Because they did not just come to me and say, hey, you come do this.
Here's a job. Yeah, it's not like in the TV shows, hey, you want to be a part of this? Let's go.
I wish, because then I would not have to do any work there. But, my when I had probably been reaching out to my boss for about knowing she was working on this in the New Jersey governor's office. I'd probably been reaching out to her for about a year prior, being like, hey, let me know if you need help. This sounds really awesome. I would love to be a part of it. And kind of kept checking in and maintaining that relationship until finally she was like, okay, we're ready. The host committee is forming. We're leaving our jobs in government. We need help. We're ready. So that's basically how it happened. It's so much about being persistent, and timing is so huge. And I always wish I could give people a better answer. No. And it's just like, it's so much about timing and luck, which is not fair, but I just feel like that's when things happen.
But I think that is actually really great advice, because it's not just timing and luck, but also the persistence, right? Yeah. A lot of people will say, oh, I sent an email and I'm waiting for a reply. And and there's persistence and there's pleasant persistence versus, and the skill of timing it out and following up and staying in touch and touching base. That takes a lot of effort, and that does set someone apart. And I think, especially as women, sometimes we try too hard to be like, okay, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to this or that. And there's that perfect balance of staying on someone's radar and being persistent in a way that's authentic to you. Yep. Was that something that comes naturally to you, or is that something that you've ever struggled with?
I've absolutely struggled with that. I think overthink and rethink, especially as a woman, just being totally that exact mindset. I don't want to be annoying. I feel like I'm being annoying by reaching out or saying XYZ. But I think striking that balance of where it is pleasant, like as you said, in terms of you're checking in, you're doing your homework, you're not just blindly reaching out to people without much context or anything like that. But also knowing people are really busy. I'm sure if people watch this, they will know that I need, especially now in my current role, just with the amount of emails and texts and all of this, I need multiple reminders and texts and
how many of us are like, I responded in my head.
So it's a lot of people, they're so busy. It's not actually it's not being annoying, it's actually being helpful.
Right.
Because I need so many pings. And so I think that's the biggest thing. It's just being aware, you might think you're being annoying, etc. But a lot of times people need those nudges, and it helps you stay on top of mind of other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very helpful advice in any field, in any vocation. And it's kind of fascinating. It helps you get a dream job right here. I mean, this is fantastic and so exciting. And I know that from my perspective, knowing that the Giants play at MetLife, the venue that is hosting the World Cup, I've had people come out of the woodworks ask me. I can imagine how many people ask you for tickets on a daily basis.
I don't control tickets. The host committee doesn't control tickets.
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
But yeah.
All right. You mentioned too working with some of the local teams and the venue, of course, MetLife Stadium, the home of the Giants and the Jets. What's it been like coordinating, or how much collaboration is there with the Giants, with the Jets, with the local affiliates here?
Yeah, no, they've been great partners. We work really closely, primarily just with the stadium, with the staff at MetLife Stadium. Through that, they've helped facilitate a lot of relationships with the Jets and the Giants. And I think that is only increasing, especially now. It's actually funny. I think I have a meeting with some of the staff next week.
Love that.
On the marketing side. So it's only increasing now that it's officially about a year out. So these conversations are picking up, which is super exciting. And we want to collaborate and have these kind of crossover moments between different sports, bring soccer to new audiences, ignite, every different fan in our region. And, the Giants Jets are just such giant icons in New York and New Jersey. So for us to do any type of partnership is huge. And I think more to come on that soon. But we also work super closely with our professional soccer clubs, like Gotham, who play just over the river at or I'm not sure what river that is, but
there's a river.
There's a river. There's a river. But over in Harrison, New Jersey, not far, at Red Bull Stadium, or now Sports Illustrated Stadium. So the Gotham team is awesome. Red Bull, New York Red Bulls, who play over there as well, been awesome partners. And then actually over the Hudson River is NYCFC, New York City Football Club, who we also work with a lot. So those three entities as the professional soccer clubs here are crucial to all of our marketing operations, legacy, programming, all of that. And that, again, is only going to continue throughout. And hopefully we're making some headway in some of the other sports too, like, Knicks, Nets, Devils, Rangers, all of those.
Liberty.
Liberty. Oh, yeah. I'm a giant Liberty fan, so it's ideally Liberty soon. So we're the sports capital of the world too. So it's there's no better place for this to be.
It's fascinating to think that a World Cup, an event that is like a crescendo in the world of soccer and the world of FIFA, would need any marketing, right? It's like people know that it exists, people know, but you also want to drive some sort of a fanfare around that. How do you kind of, what kind of initiative, or how do you build that?
Yeah. So I think for us, a main mission of the host committee is to, how are we engaging everyday residents here, in New York and New Jersey? And also we're expecting over 1 million visitors from all over to come in during 2026. It's going to be a really busy time. And only a small percentage of those visitors will actually have tickets to a match. So for us, it's really important to bring that experience outside the stadium. So for us, we are developing a whole regional fan engagement plan that we want to bring to life. And there will be a massive, what's called a FIFA Fan Festival, which is basically a giant watch party, entertainment center, food center that is ideally open throughout the duration of the tournament, which is 39 days. So we're nailing that process down, but that's something that serves the region, serves international visitors, people who are just following their teams around as well, and bringing that World Cup experience outside of the stadium. So that is one key moment. And then we want to also make sure we're reaching out into, North, South, Central Jersey, the 5 borough, the other 4 boroughs outside Manhattan, in New York City, and getting out and being able to bring the World Cup to them in a little bit.
Yeah.
And make it as accessible as possible. That's one of our goals, is to make it as accessible and inclusive as possible. And we have, what makes our region special is we have almost every country represented here. I'm sure you could go out and find any bar or restaurant that represents some club or some, national team that's playing in the World Cup. So that is so unique to our region. And that's, we want to bring those stories and bring those ideas to life.
Yeah. Now, when you look back at not just your career trajectory, but your life trajectory from, the college basketball player to the young professional to where you are now, is there something that you think that I wish I knew this then? What is something that a piece of advice or a piece of wisdom that you've accrued over time that you wish you could tell your younger self? Or perhaps some people listening out there that might say, oh, that's, you know what? Had I known that when I was younger?
I think it's things work out. And I am one to get very, I can get very overwhelmed or, overthink something that goes wrong or something doesn't happen. I've been unemployed for long stints. I've been, being in jobs that I was not happy with. It's challenging, and things feel like they're, things at times feel pretty hopeless. But my advice is things do tend to work out when you stick through it.
Yeah.
It's also taking that nonlinear path. As we're talking sports, I have a very untraditional line to sports. So it's kind of saying yes to those those opportunities that maybe don't align exactly with maybe the ultimate goal, but just trying to work them to your advantage.
Yeah. Kind of being open to where they take you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's my advice, is just taking a step back, being like, okay, things will work out. You'll be where you're meant to be, which is obviously always easier said than done.
Sure.
But
yeah,
that is my, I mean, little me could not imagine I would be here right now sitting in a Giants podcast room as a lifelong Giants fan. So, that's pretty amazing.
That is incredible. And I mean, the fact that you've gone through so many incredible accomplishments so far in your career, and I'm sure there are so many more to come too. I'm thrilled to have you here talking about your journey and your Giants fandom. I gotta say, from living in New York, from New York, New Jersey area, is there a Giants moment that sticks out to you that kind of quantifies, this is one of the moments that said, I love this team?
Oh God.
I know, right? It's on the spot. It's
I mean, I will say that there's so many, but I can just vividly remember finding out that Tiki Barber had retired. I remember where I was. I think I was down in Florida visiting my grandma with my family. I remember there was actual tears that were shed when Tiki Barber retired. But that's the main one. But it keeps going from there. Then I had to replace my running back. I got a Ahmad Bradshaw jersey, which was kind of a deep cut, but that was, so it. And obviously the Super Bowl wins, and we're coming back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think too that the highs and lows of sports fandom, especially, translates in so many different ways. And building towards a World Cup, building towards anything, working in sport in general, there's so many highs and lows, and being along for the ride is what kind of makes it special, right?
Totally. I love that analogy, because that is so true, especially in career life. Those ups and downs are very real. So
absolutely. Well, Carly Gruenberg, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us about the upcoming World Cup and all of the wonderful career trajectories that have brought you to where you are right now. This has been an episode of Her Playbook brought to you by Kendra Scott, the jewelry company that's shining bright and doing good. Shop jewelry styles designed for every day and every occasion at your local Kendra Scott store or at kendrascott.com.